Welcome to the FitPro Social. This week we have another brand new guest. We have Matt from Service Sports. Matt, welcome to this week's episode. How are things?
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
No worries at all. We were just chatting before the episode and we were saying that we met during the Independent Gym Conference. Was it about a month ago in Solihull?
Yep.
How has everything been since then? How did you find the event?
Yeah, really good for us. We really like the independent market. It's big for us because obviously it's a lot of that owner operator. All the, in one sense, all the decision making is with that person, and you're dealing with them on the front line rather than, having a huge multi-site operator that's got a few different people. You can obviously deal directly with that person that can, make those decisions regardless of what they are. And also even for us, just helping to understand what's going on in that market better. Yeah. Those guys are the experts. So it's a really good, we support Rob and the guys at independent gyms on all of their stuff because it's quite an important market for us that, to be fair, we want to do more in. Which is really good, like I said, just to meet the people that are at those things. And they're very difficult to meet just, off your own back, if you will. So those sorts of conferences that Rob sets up are brilliant because it's all the right people in, one space and you can have some really good conversations.
Nice. Yeah, the community and bringing everybody together that helps and support each other just makes things easier. So obviously I know who you are because we had a chat there, but Ash might not know, or the people listening and watching further down the line might have no idea who Matt is either. So who is Matt and what is Service for Sport?
Yeah, so I'm very brief about myself. So I've been in the industry probably since university, so probably 10, 12 years ago now. Came out of university with my degree, and like a lot of people, I think, wasn't really sure what direction I wanted to go in with that. And it just so happened that the Virgin Active that was my local gym, if you will, that I was a member at, was hiring. Came in there as a reception, just part-time, worked multiple roles, onto the gym floor and various sort of things like duty manager before moving across to a site in Manchester as the fitness manager. That then took me across to Nuffield, who purchased that site. And then over the last sort of 7-8 years that I was with those guys, sort of multiple roles from insight and then also doing projects for those guys outside. So things like some of the integration when they purchased more Virgin Active sites. And then pre-COVID was part of their refurbishment team. So we were going around doing obviously all the gym refurbs across sort of 50 sites that we'd done in the 2 years. Obviously then COVID hit and my role took quite a change. So basically moved into very hybrid project manager style role. So we were doing everything from setting up COVID testing centres to relocating clinical services from our hospitals at Nuffield at the time. So very, very diverse and more away from that fitness element in one sense. Before basically just over a year ago. So my manager, our commercial director at Service Sport, reached out, offered me a role and jumped at it. So my first role in the supplier side of the world, if you will. A lot of my background is obviously operationals and the customer side, but I think that's really helped me since moving across because I've got that sort of understanding of how operators do run and how then Service Sport can support them.
Nice. This quick for anyone that's listening to this, any PT studio owners, gym owners who are listening to this now, what exactly does Service Sport do? What's the problem that they solve for them?
So at our absolute core, we're service repair and maintenance. So business has been around, going way back to 1999. Our chairman set it up. And basically since then, the core element of the business has been as an independent service provider. So exactly as it sounds, supporting sites with their out of warranty equipment, regardless of manufacturer. We work across all the big manufacturers, and we work with everybody from your big multi-site commercial gyms all the way down to the local Dave's gym, if you will, at the end of the road. So we touch sort of everyone across the industry in that sense. So as I say, our core business is that service and repair. And then what we have is sort of what I call sort of spokes of the business that just support that and are there to support the customer and for us to be able to offer a better service. So things like we have in-house upholstery, we do in-house electronic repairs of equipment, we do logistical work, we do 3D printing, we do refresh of equipment. So all of that though is just sort of designed to support that core element of service and repair, really. So we might just look after the equipment for one customer, but should they then have need of anything else, we sort of sit there as that support network, if you will, that as part of working with us, we can also facilitate, things as simple as they just want to see what a new design might look like, and we can support with CAD design, or they need some upholstery doing, or they've been quoted £1,000 for a new monitor. We can actually come and look at that and try and repair it for them for fraction of the cost. So all of those bits are just there to support that core element of service and repair.
And what's quite interesting about that, the idea that you're working with so many different areas of it within the fitness industry. So you're working with kind of smaller units, you're looking with big corporate organizations. Is there anything you've noticed, especially considering you had a background in service before, and especially pre-COVID, and then now we're looking at kind of post-COVID in this new role, seeing all these different businesses within the fitness industry, different levels. Have you noticed any change since then? Anything that's happening in the industry that you think's changed compared to what it was like beforehand?
Yeah, if anything, it's been, great for us, much busier. And I think for me, obviously, pre-COVID was in that operator side, and since post being on this side of the world, everyone's that little bit more savvy, it feels like, with their spend. So, previous to this, most big operators, even small operators, would all be on that sort of cycle of new equipment, of that 5-6-year cycle of getting new equipment in the estate. And what we're finding now, we're getting a lot of people come to us that maybe not even just can't keep to that sort of cycle anymore, but more not necessarily wanting to, in the sense of they've got the equipment, they know that it's good quality, and that there are people out there like us that can help them just continue that life of it, and almost, I don't particularly like the term, but almost, sweating that asset for a much longer period of time, so you can get more value out of it, really. And what we're seeing from that is then that by doing that, the monies that they would assign to refurbishments, they may be spending a bit wiser. So rather than saying they've got X amount to do X amount of sites, asking themselves, how much can X amount get me? And going where they might look to continue just maintaining what they've got in some sites, upgrading others, rather than just that wholesale trade in, trade out cycle. So definitely since post-COVID, we're, and very recently, we're seeing a lot of, interest with ourselves. We do work with a lot of the big operators already, but just on much, the scale of that is just growing and growing with us as more people see the value of extending the life of the asset that they've got, rather than just trading that out because that's what they've always done.
Yeah, I think when we had our studio, obviously we apologies, we didn't know about you when we had our studio, but we had another service provider come in, and we'd have them come in once a year to go through the ski, through the bike, through the rowing machine. And like I said, it gave us a peace of mind having it being serviced once a year. So if it did break, we had somebody to come and fix it. And the fact that it was being serviced, it wouldn't break as often, which meant clients were happier because all the equipment was working, and then there was no stress from the coaches and everything. So like it is a perfect service for people that have these type of equipments that can have these technical issues.
Sorry, go on. I was just going to say, for us, we sort of work with people on, I suppose I say, two scales. One is exactly what you've just said, that annual service, that then from that point, on an ad hoc basis, should something go wrong, they let us know and they log it on our CRM system. We provide a quote for that work, and we come out and deal with it if there is anything in that sort of interim period between services. But also we work with a lot of customers on we'll call it an all-inclusive basis, where they'll pay us a monthly fee, if you will, and then as part of that, whenever or anything happens, it's all built into that monthly fee, so they can log as many jobs as they need to or want to in that sort of 12-month or ongoing period, and we're there to come out and repair it. So for them, exactly what you're saying, they've got that added layer of security of, the minute something fails, or the minute something looks like it's about to fail, they can log it with us and know that we'll be there to come out and either ideally preemptively fix a potential failure, or obviously worst case, get that piece of kit back in working order as quickly as possible for them. So it's just that security, exactly like you said, so they can continue to trade, and the trainers can train clients in there, or even just Joe Blog customer can come in and that if they just want to use a treadmill, they just want to know that it's working and it's clean and it's good to go. And that's where we sort of sit, that, like I said, regardless of what equipment people do have, we can help. So it just hopefully eliminates that, who do I go to for which piece of kit? With us, we can look after anything. So whether that be a concept product or a Technogym product, or whoever it might be, we're just that single service provider. So again, just removes any unnecessary complexity around things like that something breaks, I'll log it with these guys, they'll come out and sort it.
Nice. So having had the experience of working in commercial gyms for the length of time you did, and now you work with a lot of independent gyms, if I was to open a studio and I'm trying to compare myself to Pure Gym or JD Gym or all these other gyms that have so much equipment, where should an independent be looking? Should we be trying to compare to them, or can we get away with just the basics to get the thing moving and then start building and working with yourselves to add bits to it?
I think it's actually exactly that second option. Obviously everyone wants to do things their own way and emulate those that are doing really well. But what we find that certainly now, speaking to more people and especially off the back of independent gyms, but even the big box places, that this best in class option. So not necessarily having that single manufacturer that provides absolutely everything, going down more this best in class route. So that if they want that latest technology in their CV kit, then they go to this person. If they want the concept products, exactly as you said, if they want certain CrossFit style training products, functional products, they go to this person. And what that seems to be the big shift that we're seeing more, is rather than it being a single provider that covers everything and might not be an expert in all of those areas, customers now going much more down this sort of best in class route, and working with multi different operators to be able to deliver on that. So there's some really good examples at the moment. That there's the Bannatyne site have just opened a Just Fitness site, and down south, a really good example of working with lots of different providers to be able to pick those best in class offerings. And then where we sit within that is we can advise on just how that gym you want that to look, because in one sense we've got no skin in the game. If you're looking at doing complete new refurbishments, we're just there as your independent service provider to offer support and advice on that. And then what we try and do as well is, from our experience of looking after literally almost all manufacturers of equipment of varying ages, we can offer advice around what we see are the sort of better products in terms of longevity as well. So then when that product does fall into our world, should there when it comes out of that warranty period, that we know that is a piece of machinery that can be maintained well, and like I say, just hoping for those guys we can extend the life of that equipment for them.
Oh, you just put two questions in my head now. The first question I was going to ask is, obviously, we're not going to name any manufacturer names or anything like that, but you look at some and they're charging, I don't know, £600 for a barbell. And then you jump on another website and you can get a barbell for £90. Obviously, the standard weight loss gym customer doesn't know the difference in one barbell to the other. Yeah, the grip might feel a bit nicer and so forth. But from your experience working with such a wide range of equipment, does the cost of the equipment really give you a massive advantage to the lower end, or can most people get away with low end or medium end, or do they have to go high end?
I think it depends on what you're looking for. I think to an extent, obviously cost drives quality in one sense. If you're looking, if you're looking at functional equipment or strength equipment like your barbells, I suppose for us, my view on it would be, it depends obviously on how often you potentially be looking to replace those. But as you say, at their core, there is the premium barbells, which obviously have a premium price tag with them. Depending on the market that you're in and your customer base, you might be more than happy with a base range model, just knowing though that you might need to replace that a bit more often. But that might work better for you depending on how people's finances are and things like that. What we seem to see is when you're looking at sort of the bigger pieces of equipment around the digital aspects. So if you've got CV with the all singing, all dancing tech in there, the only one for us that we look like that is obviously the more tech in there, the more that can go wrong over time, and obviously the cost that can then be associated with that. So, I think a couple of people are doing this really well currently, where they're looking at a bit of a split to these things. So they know that some customers do want that CV that's all singing or dancing and they can watch Netflix on there, whatever it might be. But also they have just got a core membership that want to be able to jump on a treadmill and run a 10K or do some sprints. So we are seeing quite a few operators now mixing and matching. So they might have a handful of these highly digital pieces of CV, and then the other side just with the standard LED, because they know that at the core, most members probably just want to make sure that they can jump on something and do that run or whatever it might be, but still providing a further option, if you will, for those that want it. So again, just it links me back to the very beginning, where people are just being a bit more savvy with their spend, it feels like at the moment. Which I think is really smart, and it's really good.
Hey, it's going to pause it there for literally 2 seconds. If you're loving this week's episode, please let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. The more people we can get subscribing, the bigger guests we can get, and the more people we can help with the content being shared. Anyway, let's dive back into today's episode. Okay, one more question for me, because I can see Ash is itching to ask a question. There's such a wide range of people to purchase from. Yeah, I'm going on a website and they look relatively new. What should I be looking for? Because you mentioned the word warranty. What should I be looking for with brands that are maybe less known, to make sure I'm actually getting a good deal compared to going to those that are very, very experienced? We know them inside out. What should I be looking for to make sure I don't lose out financially?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult in the sense of what you should look like. That's sort of where we like to separate ourselves and put ourselves in there, even just as an advisor. If you're an independent gym and you're or any gym, and you're trying to figure out who to work with, the one for me is always going to be what's built into that warranty, if it's new that you're going for, as in, and what I mean by that is obviously what's included in it. So obviously it might be a 5-year warranty, for example, but from experience, we know that certain things start to expire as you get, as little as a year into that warranty, and certain things then aren't covered within there, and so on and so on. And that's where we sort of sit there, that, just even, I say, as part of working with us, but I mean, if someone was to reach out to us and ask for some advice on stuff, we offer that, no problem at all, just around things that we have experience of. So what we know the parts supply might be. So once that does come out of a warranty, knowing that there is people out there that can support you in maintaining that for, another 5 years or another 10 years, however long you might envision having that kit for. So I think that the key one is obviously, go with someone that you're happy with. The price point is obviously always going to dictate quite an important point for people, but, the reputable brands do often have that good parts supply in the background, that when they do come out of that warranty, that there are people there, service providers like us, that can support sites, as well as the manufacturer, obviously, but people like us that can continue to support them. That doesn't mean that after that warranty expires they have to buy new again, because if something breaks, there's nothing they can do with it, so they're going to have to go and purchase something brand new. So they're always ones, and that's where we're happy to always say step in, but just offer our sort of advice on things like that for people.
I quite like that. Dave's obviously talked a lot about this front end side of it, buying the equipment and what advice you've got on that equipment. But I want to just take it back a little bit to where you mentioned there was that change between how maybe before the pandemic, before COVID, people were just basically churning through equipment. So you get 5-6 years, you buy new equipment, and now it's more thinking about how can you get the most out of that equipment now, and as you mentioned, kind of sweat it for as long as possible. What kind of cost savings are you looking at here? For anyone thinking about this, like, is it just, I'm having to pay another company now to come in here and service this and look after it? Is that going to be more cost effective than buying new equipment all the time? And what is that kind of saving for people?
Yeah, I mean, don't want to sound like I'm pitching for business, so, but but we offer. So basically, what we look to do is, once it comes out of that warranty period, or however long you might have had it, you might have already had it for sort of 10 years. We offer a refresh service. So we do a lot of this in with one of our customers, the Ministry of Defence. So we do this a lot with these guys, where we basically take that asset, it's stripped back to its frame, it's resprayed, powder coated in brand colors, should people want things like that, and then we replace all the parts on that machine. So you effectively get your asset that you already own, and it comes back to you for all intents and purposes a new piece of equipment, because of the sum of its parts are new. And it's a fraction of the cost to be able to do that. Obviously, a third of the cost on average is what we look at versus brand new. And that's actually that's fully refreshing it as well. Some customers that we work with, just on the basis of extending the life through regular maintenance, will be paying astronomically lower sums than they would if they were to go and purchase a full brand new gym after that 5-year period. A service contract will cost you, a couple of £1,000 a year, depending obviously on the size of your gym and type of assets and things like that. Whereas, we know that a brand new gym, you're looking hundreds of thousands to put that in there. And as I say, I think for me and what we see is just the consumers that little bit smarter.
Yeah.
They've got access to so much information, at the minute with things like, we've got so much information in the palm of the hand with their smartphones that people are a bit savvier around their own training. So it's not necessarily just this new shiny piece of kit that they want to see. It's actually what the variety of the equipment that's in there and the functionality of it towards their training goals and things like that.
No, that makes sense.
Dog in the room, apologies.
That's actually quite out, because I want to kind of bring this back to a little bit about you. Actually, one of the things about the FitPro Social is trying to find out the people behind whoever we're talking to. So the other thing I want to talk about is your previous roles, which was obviously more service based to what you're doing now. How did you find the skills that you was doing before this job? Like, how did you find those skills in terms of transferring them into this new role? Yeah,
it's probably one of those. It sounds really silly to say, but really, I mean, I'm glad I did it, and I think it set me up really well for this role. The more recent role that I was doing sort of pre-COVID when I was at Nuffield was basically a gym transformation project. So we were working through 50 sites over 2 years. They were getting full refurbishments, everything from flooring, lighting to new equipment. And moving across to this side now, it's almost really interesting to look back on that and see what we were doing versus what maybe you would do now. And what I mean by that is, as I say, we were probably in that world of, this is how much money we've got to do this many sites, and this is the equipment we want. Whereas now I would look back on that and go, how much more could it have got us? So some of these options around refresh or picking some different best in class options and things like that, and spreading it out. So yes, 50 sites got done and it was amazing for those clubs, but there's over 100 different sites in Nuffield. So the idea being that potentially could we have spread that out a bit further, so that every site was getting a benefit of some sort. I always understood we'll always have these core flagships, if you will, that because of where they are, the membership base, they absolutely need to be on that cycle of new equipment. But then the equipment that's in there, it might be 5 years old, but it's better than what's in this site down the road. So we could have used that equipment, waterfalled that down into another site. So sort of two sites for the price of one, if you will, could have been done. And as I say, that everybody then starts to benefit from, like I say, just being a bit more efficient with that spend, or a bit more, like I said, looking at it from a different perspective of what can it get me, rather than this is what I want for it, if that makes sense.
Nice. So let's go, like Ash is saying, you've had this previous role where you're working for Nuffield, and now you're working where you're servicing equipment. How does the operations differ, or can operations be the same for both? Like, because if you're brand new to the fitness industry, you opened your first studio, your operations might not be fully there. You're trying to learn and develop as they go. How important are they for both that you've done so far?
Yeah, massively so. I think we've got a couple of our guys in the office that are ex-operators as well, that we've brought across from working in gyms. And for us to start with, it's super important that they've got that experience, I think, because they can understand what it is to be in those sites, when their equipment's down or whatever it might be that we're working on for them. Our internal team having the understanding of the impact that can have on a site and an operator, whether that's a big operator or just the local gym, having that understanding of how important it is to have, as many pieces of their equipment up and functioning at that one time, and knowing that we need to get the information to them as to where this piece of kit might be up to, or whatever it might be, because they obviously then need to make sure they can pass that on to their customers. And I think from our side, having that operator experience with a lot of our team really helps us support customers better, because you know, it's not just a case of we'll get there when we get there and stop pestering us. It's we absolutely understand the impact that this is having on you because we've been there. So we are doing everything in our power. This is exactly where your job's up to, and this is when you can expect this to be fixed if it's out of order or things like that. And then from the other side, I think it benefits, you know, both sides as well, because as you say with the operator, ultimately the key for them is keeping members up to date. You know, whether that just be as simple as that's someone's favorite treadmill, and even though there's 15, 20 others that they could use, that's that one that customer always uses. So we need to make sure that we get that information to the front line. And just as important is the information that comes from the club to us, because the better quality of that information, and this is where our system really steps in, is the better quality of information we get when people are telling us what the problem is, basically massively improves our chances that our engineers can fix it the first time they go out to site, because we can send them pre-armed with multiple different parts that might be the problem. So it just means that, again, the ultimate goal is equipment downtime is as reduced as possible for the operator. And then the benefit of that naturally flows through to the customer, obviously, and that they can, you know, provide the service that effectively people are paying for.
Nice. Okay, so the FitPro Social is all about having the conversation, asking tough questions, disagreeing, agreeing, and so forth. So I'm going to put a spanner in the works here now. You said you have a few previous operators working with you now that completely understand what it's like to have equipment go down and so forth and everything. So what are your thoughts around personal trainers being in great shape in order to train their clients, or can they get away without being in great shape to train their clients?
Yeah, I mean, from my own perspective, I think the interest in fitness is what's important. I would say, you know, just because I suppose there's two sides to it. The outside looking in, the person in fantastic condition must know what they're talking about, you know, right? But on the flip side of that, it absolutely does not mean that they do. Especially not in certain populations as well. You know, that huge guy might be the perfect person to go talk to if that's what you want to look like. But depending on what you're interested in, that might not actually be the best person, and they might also not know anything about the, you know, if you're just looking down more of a well-being route potentially. Not to say that they won't, but it's more for me that interest in fitness as a general rule. So being into your own health and well-being at whatever scale. And naturally from that, I do believe that there comes the physical looks, if you will, that go along with that. I'm certainly not myself, absolute, you know, shredded or anything like that. And I don't think you have to be, but I do think there is an element of being into your own fitness, whatever that interest might be, whether that's sport related, whether that is more holistic training related, body weight training. I think what you market yourselves as, you should also have that same interest in, because, you know, I don't necessarily believe in this. There's that trainer out there that this one-stop shop, if you will, that can, no matter what the customer wants, they can deal with. I do find that pick 5 trainers, they'll be able to give you 5 different results depending on your interest. So they don't necessarily need to all look like they could be on the cover of a magazine. But for me, it obviously depends on what the customer's actually looking for in the first place. If that's what they're looking for, then absolutely that should be what you're aiming for yourself, and that should be the impression that you're giving off. But if that isn't what someone's goal is, then that's how I can see that other trainers have their individual niches, if you will.
Yeah, that makes sense. I kind of get what you're saying with that on there. One thing I do want to quickly go back to, you mentioned quite a few times now about these bigger brands. So these bigger big gyms and everyone like that. But you've also mentioned a few times about wanting to work with smaller gyms, like, you know, those kind of tiny gyms, solopreneurs, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
When we're talking about this price difference there, you mentioned earlier on about how you're going to try and save a third on this renewal of equipment all the time, and starting any kind of business, you want to try and save as much cash as possible. What would you say to anybody, like a trainer who wants to start and open up their own gym? If you're going to come along and say, right, you can hire us in, we can give you advice on what equipment to go and get all the time, and then we're going to save you a third on repairing that after your warranty is done. There's going to be a point at some point where it makes more sense to go and buy new equipment out of it all. And how do you justify that to I mean, I'm sure you can justify it to big gyms quite easily, but like, how do you justify it to the smaller solopreneurs, the smaller gyms out there when they've got to invest that kind of money into a company like yourselves to help them?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we work with people on sort of two scales. So as I say, some businesses we work with on a purely, I say ad hoc, but pay as you go basis effectively. And then they're the ones where absolutely at some point that machine gets to a point where it's beyond that, it's beyond economically being repairable because of how much you're spending on it outweighs the value of buying one new. So they're quite almost, I say simple in one sense, but quite a simple fix to go, listen, because our system demonstrates all of that. They can track all that information, how often we're coming out to a machine, how much they've spent on it, things like that. And our system is able to show them that. And again, we sort of just sit there as we will support you in however we're able to. And we don't want people burning through money at the end of the day either. So we'll happily sit there and go, this machine at this point, you're spending much more than you would need to. You'd be better off buying new. We can support with that using, we can procure on your behalf and apply, we have our trade rates and things that go along with that to support them. Whereas with some customers, we work on an all-inclusive basis, which it sounds really silly to say, but to an extent, it's our spend on the repairs. Mm-hmm. So they pay us a monthly fee to look after that piece of equipment, which, is over time, we will probably end up getting to a point where we are the ones saying to them, they're taking the win on this, is what I'm sort of saying, is across the entire, gym that they've got, one piece of kit might cost us personally as a business a fortune to maintain, but on some others we'll make some wins and they'll make some wins, and it balances out really well for both sides because we can just continue to maintain that. It sits with us if we need to spend X amount on it or not. But again, almost we then feed back more on downtime. So that's where we might sit in there and go, this piece of equipment, we will continue to maintain it for you, no problem, but it's failing literally every other week. It goes out of order. The parts that are starting to fail are on long lead times and things like that. And we can just offer advice to go, well, this one you should be looking to replace, but that's your choice. If you want us just to continue to maintain it as best we can, we absolutely will. But our advice would be X, and here are some options that we can, or even put you in touch with people that provide, things that they're looking for like that.
So in that all-inclusive model, I'm just curious about how conversations would go at some point when you get to, okay, you now need to replace this piece of equipment. And would there be a point where a gym might go back, well, actually, I'm paying you to maintain it. And like you said there, you'll carry on maintaining it. But surely there's going to be a point where that's going to become a lot less cost effective for you. And you guys are going to have to come back and say, look, do you need to replace this? Or is that something you guys would replace?
Yeah, basically what we usually find is that only happens literally at the very end of something's life. And what we have in there is basically that it's beyond economical repair, because the actual cost of the part necessarily or parts that are needed to fix that machine at that point vastly outweigh the piece of equipment. And that's where we would just sit going, listen, you actually are better off. We can't continue to maintain that. And then that's the rare occasion that we get to, is where actually it's very rare that we can't keep something working as long as the parts supply is there in the background. It's just when the equipment comes to that point where, as I say, that the cost of a new one would be 10 times cheaper at that point than replacing the entirety of the machine. But again, that's where we can offer things to support them around refresh and those other bits, that actually we can take that machine, completely strip it back down and replace all the parts new as a refresh product and put that back in, that gives it another extended life with them, if they've not got the money there to be able to get something new, or maybe not the desire either.
Hey, just going to pause it there really quickly. If you know any guests that would love to feature, or if you yourself would like to feature on one of these episodes, do let us know by reaching out or letting us know in the comments. Anyway, let's get back into the episode. Nice. So we've talked a lot about you going in and refreshing or updating or tweaking and fixing their machines and stuff. But you've mentioned as well, you've got a load of additional sidearms. Yep. Now, for independent studio owners, less commercial, more studio, they have this main core product, which for you, it might be going into services equipment. Mm-hmm. At what stages should they be offering out clothing and supplements and online programs and different stuff? And how and when should they be promoting it by coming away from their main core money-making product?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. Close friend of mine that I actually went to university with has his own independent gym. Exactly that. He has this core group training offering, if you will. They do a clothing line that's internal to them. They don't do supplements or anything like that. For me, I suppose it's basically a case of have you got the market there within your site to be able to do that? And taking those sort of logical stepping stones. So the core one is exactly, as you say, set up your business with your model, with your, unique, selling points or what class format, design, whatever that might be. And once you've got that right and that's working, then taking that first step and doing, I say one at a time, but just making those logical steps to go with customer feedback. What would you want to see? Is that branded clothing? Because we know, because this is a lot of the work we do with the independents, is their gym brand and awareness of that is so important to them. And we do a lot of custom upholstery for these sorts of places around their logo on their equipment and things like that on their upholstery. The clothing line's the nice natural progression of that, obviously, that you've got your customers training in your clothing and things like that. It's obviously just always going to be a question of the return on the investment within that. And then supplements, things like that. I'm probably a big believer in what I would say is people are driven by what they know. I know a lot of places that will sell already branded merchandise and things like that, rather than necessarily go down the route of their own. Because if people are like me, you sort of buy what I say trust, but what you know. So funnily enough, I think Rob might have mentioned this on his, that he was on with you around things like Grenade and those guys that were at the independent gym conference. So for me, it would be sort of trading on the success of others in one sense, and using those brands to also, to boost your own. And, I would probably say that the customers are more likely to pick something that they've seen on the shelves in Tesco or wherever it might be, or another gym potentially, rather than an unknown. Your core membership that have been with you since day one might absolutely go for that, no problem. But that, that wider piece of every member is probably more likely to pick something off a shelf they've seen on another shelf, if you will.
Cool. I think with your experience of going to all these different gyms and studios, some, like the bigger commercial gyms to the smaller studios, are there any things that you've noticed in terms of the ones that are more successful? Is there any kind of commonalities across all the more successful gyms at the moment that you're seeing that they're doing?
Yeah, it's that community one for me. So that club within a club, if you will. So, you've got your core membership base, but the ones that I certainly see that seem to be doing really well are these ones that have really generated that internal community of members, if you will. So it's not just, and there are still people that just turn up, they put their headphones in, they're just there to train and go home. They don't want anyone to speak to them or anything like that. But the ones that seem to do really well are these ones that have managed to build that internal community, that they're there all the time. They see other they go out with other members outside of the gym, and they'll all meet up and do, whether that's something like a Three Peaks charity event. I know a lot of independent gyms have got a really good element of that within them, where they go and outside of the facility and do things as a group and as a group of members. And certainly those are the ones that I seem to see are doing really well. And that's across the sort of industry as well, even at your big 100-odd site change, those that have really done well to either develop a company-wide community, if you will, within maybe a class format that they run, or those clubs that have done really well to generate that local community one, whether that be the run clubs that they do or things like that. Those sites, regardless of size of the overarching business, that have managed to build that community, certainly seem to be the ones that have got that, that higher member satisfaction, that they even falls over into where we sit, that their equipment's in a better state, it's cleaner, it's nicer, because the members want to take care of it and things like that, and the site are proud of that as well. And for us, it's great, because it makes our lives much easier when we're going out to these sites and things are well maintained by the actual site and members. But yeah, absolutely, the ones where they've built this community inside of them, whatever that might be, but just class formats, or even just the cafe culture at the end of classes, things like that.
I love that. I mean, I'd definitely say I'd agree with that. I think, I don't know if Dave would, but I'm sure I would. You see it across the board as well, not just with the face-to-face stuff, the online stuff. I always find that people come to you for the results, but they stay with you because of the community. And it's
Yeah.
the longer you can keep that client, the better lifetime value it is for your business. So yeah, I 1% agree with that on there. Talking about that on that same kind of ilk with that, are there any things within the fitness industry at the moment that that frustrates you at the moment? Like, is there anything that's really frustrating about the fitness industry, or are there things that you really love about this industry? Because obviously you've been in it for a long time doing different things. Nice to see your thoughts on that.
No, I think of frustrations now. No, I mean, from
more controversial, the better.
Yeah.
I mean, two sides, from I suppose business and then a personal side to it. I mean, from a business point of view, for me, I'll always be frustrated by, we are there to support these sites, but ultimately the front line is the teams within the clubs, and the better that they look after their equipment in their site and the pride that they take in that. Yes, it is better for us, but what I mean by that is it means that we're able to come out and fix things before anything goes wrong, rather than being a sort of firefighting service that's only called out when it's too late and the equipment's been out of order and things like that. So that's my only frustration with sites, is the better you look after it and work with us, is actually, again, the better, longer life you'll have in that equipment, the less downtime of kit, the less, therefore, complaints and so on and so on. And then from a personal point of view, actually, it's a really good space. So at my local gym, and sort of the ones that I train in when I'm traveling around, it's actually moved away from being a frustration, because people seem to be going down the route that I quite like, which is these mixture of these functional and strength training areas. So rather than segmenting the gyms very, very clearly in terms of this is cardio, this is fixed strength, this is free weight, while that still exists to an element, which I do agree with, this sort of mixed functional and strength area that people are going down and doing, like I won't necessarily call it a CrossFit space, but down that route, if you will. And I think it's because so many more people are much more confident in gyms now. Like, everyone's got smartphone, they've got access to so much on YouTube, Instagram, everything like that, that these spaces are just being built as the facilitators of people's training. So rather than the clubs necessarily dictating how you train, they're almost just saying, how do you want to train, and we'll build these spaces to fit. And that's what I really like at the moment. And almost a lot of these clubs building or redeveloping spaces that is almost, we'll provide the kit and the facility, you turn up and do what you want to do. And that's what I really enjoy my training, for example, at the minute.
Nice. Okay, so we've got one more question before we end the live. My list is huge. I'm going to take one more question to finish now. So, I know we keep saying you've been in the industry long, but I don't want people to think like you're old or anything. So just do say that. Yeah. But you've been in the industry a long time, so you will have seen trends come in and out, such as spin bikes, and you got really big and then they disappeared. And we're all wanting to know, what's that next big thing? What can we do to get ahead of everybody? Or commercial gyms, what equipment, like you just said then, should I be buying, because that's going to come as a big thing, and that's going to help boost memberships over the next 6 months, over the next year. What are you seeing now, and where do you see things going that's going to kind of explode, and people need to be on that now, so when it does, they're just going to see sky high memberships?
For me, it's this sort of shift to well-being rather than fitness, so to speak, in a sense. So there'll always be a core membership that is just there to lift weights or go run those 10Ks and things like that, but this overarching shift in the industry, in a sense, of moving towards this more health and well-being that supports basically that core training element that people want to do. A lot of people doing this really well at the minute, and it's got huge growth still in it, but developing spaces that are, again, almost as I was saying, is still semi-defined in terms of layout and things like that, but basically, as I say, just providing spaces for people to do what they want to do, and not limiting, therefore, who can come in and use their club by only doing, being a strength place or anything like that. So a couple of people do this really well with this, these sort of well-being space that you're seeing with things like your Theraguns and all those sorts of bits. But rather than it just being a few mats on the floor and a place for someone to stretch, it's becoming more of this dedicated area for what I'd sort of say is pre and post workout. And as I say, they're then just supplementing your core training, rather than, as I say, it just being a few mats dumped on the floor that everyone felt they had to provide. It's actually a dedicated space of, I won't say holistic training, but more that element of pre and post workout. So whether that's mobilization, but the tools that then go with that. I think if I could come up with it, then I would be laughing. But anything in that sort of space that people are designing around mobility and mobilization and then post training support, I certainly think is that next route. Obviously, a lot of people went heavily down that digital element and that remote training, if you will. I do sort of see that's not gone full circle, but people now moving back to this. It's more important to be face to face and having the team members and that level of service back in clubs again, rather than just relying on digital elements. So supporting it with digitization, if that's programs and things like that, but the people in front of people in the gym. So the members of staff really being there to be able to support people as they come in, no matter what they're looking for. If they're looking for running their best 10K, or if they're just literally looking to move a bit better because they're getting older and they've done all their training and they just want to move and wake up without being stiff and sore, then, as I say, facility's able to be a bit broader in terms of both physical offering, but also in terms of how they can support members as well within that.
Nice.
I love that. I think that's a great way to round up this episode there. I appreciate you coming on, Matt. It's been an absolutely amazing episode, digging into all your experience over the not too many years.
Short amount of time.
Short amount of time. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all that with us on there. And thank you for everyone as well listening and watching this episode of the FitPro Social. If you do want to come and join us on here at any point in this episode and share your experience in the fitness industry, please do get in touch. There's information over on the FitPro Social website. You can find it at fitprosocial.com. So yeah, that's it from us this week. Thank you so much, Matt. If you've got just quickly to recap where you're from, where they can find out more information about your business, and quickly how you can help them.
Yeah, absolutely. So Matt from Service Sport, you can look us up online, but I'll have my email in maybe the comments on this, so people can reach out should they need any support with any equipment that they've got, or even just a bit of advice around what we offer and things like we've spoke about today.
Excellent. We'll pop all that into the show notes as well for anyone watching, so they can get hold of Matt. And I think that's it from us this week. So thank you very much, and we'll see you all at the next episode.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.